Higher B, week 1. This is a good example, so you'll go through this. Anything that you've not got right, make a full correction. If you've not got time now, use this video back at home. Okay. Higher B, week 1. Expand and simplify. X plus 3 squared. That means I'm taking that whole x plus 3 and multiplying it by itself. Then I've got 2 brackets, so I'm just going to use the FOIL method to do x squared plus 3 times x plus another 3 times x plus 3 times 3, which is 9. So it gives me x squared plus 6x plus 9. Question 2. Guys, this looks difficult, but it's not. All that this is root 2 is a number. And if I add 3 more of that number, I've got 4 of that number. So if you imagine it like a, like root 2 is a, and then I add 3 lots of a, I've got 4a. So I've just got root 2, and another 3 root 2 is 4 root 2, and it's just as simple as that. Right, the gradient of this line. Anyone doesn't get this, I'll be very disappointed. Y equals mx plus c. The m bit there is the gradient, so the gradient here is 4. Not 4x. 4x is not a gradient. 4 is the gradient. Okay. X squared plus 3x when x equals 2. So I've got 2 squared plus 3 times 2. I strongly recommend whenever you do any substitution, put what you're substituting in brackets. So I got 2 squared, which is 4, plus 3 times 2, which is 6. So 4 plus 6 is 10. Question 5. I've got this sequence. It's going up 5, so it's going to be 5n. And then how do I adjust from 5 to 3? I have to take away 2, so 5n take away 2 is your nth term. Question 6. This one I'm going to work out live, as it were, because this is something where we've not really focused on yet. But you will do. This is one of those fundamental skills for higher tier. I think it may also come in the very top end of the foundation tier. So a higher tier skill, okay, but also perhaps the top end of foundation tier. So what we need is factorizing quadratics as a skill. If this is x squared, the only way I can produce this, well, that's not strictly true, but the way in which you're going to produce this is to have x and x again, because that, when I FOIL this out, I will generate x times x gives me x squared. Now, the main rule that you need to remember here is that you could, the numbers that go in here and here, and I'm making that quite big so I can include a plus or a minus, those two numbers must multiply to give minus 6, or have a product of minus 6. They must add to give, in this case, I've got just x. So x is like 1x. So it's going to add to give plus 1. So they're going to multiply to give minus 6 and add to give plus 1. Those are the numbers that are going to go in here. So I'm just thinking of things that multiply to give minus 6, factors of minus 6. Well, factors of 6 are 6 and 1 or 3 and 2. And I can kind of see that they're going to, if I'm going to add to give 1, they're going to have to be 3 and 2. So I just need to think which way around that is. Well, I'm going to have plus 3 and minus 2. That's the only way I can get to to give minus 6. One of them is going to have to be negative, and one of them is going to have to be positive to produce this negative here. And then I'm thinking, right, they're going to add to give 1. So if I have plus 3 and minus 2, it works. So that's that correctly factorized. Now this is equal to 0. So I need to solve for this being equal to 0. So this is one whole number here. This is one whole number here. If either of those is 0, then it's going to multiply to give 0, because anything times 0 is 0. So what value of x would make this bracket 0? Well, if x was minus 3, then minus 3 plus 3 would be 0. So that is one solution. Right, because then this is going to be minus 3 plus 3, 0. times by minus 3 minus 2, which is minus 5, but 0 times minus 5 is still 0. It could also be x equals 2, because that would create this bracket as being 0. 2 take away 2 is 0. This would be 2 plus 3, which is 5, but 5 times 0 is still 0. So my answer is x equals minus 3, x equals 2. Two potential solutions to a quadratic. That's question 6. Question 7 is actually, again, really straightforward if you know what to do. The way it works with negative indices is, and I'm going to use a bit of algebra here to explain it. If I've got any number as a base, and I raise it to a minus power, any number there, okay, this is the same as 1 over that base to the positive power. So that sort of sounds a bit complicated, but really it's not. So in this situation here, it's just going to be 1 over the base here, which is 2, to the power of the positive power, which is 2. So that's just going to be 1 over 2 squared, which is 1 over 4, and there's your answer. I'll do another example here to help. Okay, so if I had 2 to the minus 4, that would be 1 over 2 to the 4, which is 1 over, right, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. That would be your answer. Okay, question 8. Nice and easy. The mistake people tend to make for question 8 is suddenly they turn it to an equals sign. It never is an equals, it's an inequality. So just solve as per normal, adding 1 to both sides, dividing both sides by 5, and then you should get your answer there. Question 9. Do each of these bits in turn and then add them together. So 2 times 10 to the 4 is the same as 2 times a 1 and 4 zeros, which is 2 times 10,000, which is 20,000. 3 times 10 to the 3 is 3 times by a 1 and 3 zeros, which is 3 times 1,000, which is 3,000. So when I add them together, I get 23,000.
I got that. Finally.
Fabulous. Question 10. Find the gradient of the line between 2, 3 and 4, 11. What we're going to do, any question like this, do a quick sketch. It doesn't need to be anything, you know, any beautiful or take up loads of space or anything like that. Just roughly, 2, 3 might be about there. I'm going to write that in there as 2, 3. That's my point 2, 3. 4, 11 would be kind of on that scale, somewhere around there, 4, 11. So when we're working out a gradient is the amount up or down divided by the amount left or right. So my amount up or down here, just drawing a little triangle, here's my line. I got my amount up or down, I got my amount left or right. The amount up is from 3 to 11, so that is 8. The amount left or right is from 2 on the x-axis to 4 on the x-axis, so that's 2. So this is going to be 8 over 2, which is 4, gradient of 4.